I never thought one choice could tear apart everything I believed was steady in my life. My name is Janet, and I'm in my late 40s. For the last 10 years, I've worked at my husband Sean's family business in Portland. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to combine my skills with Sean's drive. But looking back, I realized I was walking into trouble I wasn't ready for. The business, small with only 9 employees, is run by Sean's dad, Kevin. Kevin likes to stay out of the day-to-day work, leaving it all to Sean, who's being groomed to take over. This setup seemed fine until it wasn't. My job, handling the operations, was important, but it came with its problems. I thought I was helping, but it only made things worse within the family. Most of the trouble came from Sean's mom, Brenda. She's in her early 70s and retired from her career, supposedly to take care of the house. But she hardly did any of the home duties, leaving me to handle both work at the firm and the house chores. Every day I spent in the office seemed to make Brenda more uncomfortable. The breaking point came one hot afternoon. We had been arguing about something small, or at least it seemed small at the time. In one of her usual fits of anger, Brenda threw a hot cup of coffee on my shirt. It was like all her built-up anger had exploded in that moment. I stood there, shocked, as the burning liquid soaked through my blouse, burning my skin. Brenda's face showed a mix of anger and satisfaction. "You've ruined everything," she said, her voice full of bitterness. But it wasn't just the coffee that broke me, it was what happened next. Brenda announced that her younger son, Brian, would be taking over my role. Brian was only 19, fresh back from Florida after dropping out of college. He was nowhere near ready for the job, but Brenda didn't care. She acted like all my years of hard work didn't matter. She even handed me a resignation letter she had already written and had the security guards escort me out. I left that building feeling betrayed, my heart heavy. How could everything unravel so quickly? I couldn't believe how everything I had worked for could just fall apart so quickly. Losing my place in both the firm and our home left me feeling lost. I knew I needed to talk to Sean and Kevin, but I was scared of what they might say. Sean, always the calm one, suggested I take a break to clear my mind. Kevin, although less emotional, also thought some time away might help. With a heavy heart, I agreed and decided to take a short trip, hoping that some distance would give me clarity. While I was away, I got an urgent call from Brian. His voice was shaky as he admitted he was overwhelmed. Brenda had assured him the job would be easy, but that wasn't the case. Brian was struggling with the basics like accounting, managing the staff, and handling daily tasks. It became clear that Brenda had underestimated how difficult the job I had been doing for years actually was. When I returned, the mood at the firm was even tenser. Sean and Kevin told me that Brian had made some serious mistakes. One of the worst was a mishandling of a major client, putting the future of the firm in danger. My heart sank as I realized Brian's errors could ruin everything we had built. Kevin, faced with this situation, said the firm would probably have to merge with a larger company. He and Sean thought it was the only way to save the business. Brenda's reaction was explosive. She was furious and insisted that Sean should take full control of the firm instead of allowing a merger. Her refusal to face reality only made things more stressful. During this chaotic time, Kevin made an even more shocking announcement. He had decided to divorce Brenda. The accusations he threw at her were harsh, neglecting her duties at home, undermining my role in the business, and even having affairs. Brenda's shock and anger were obvious, and the family's relationships grew even more strained. Kevin's decision to kick Brenda and Brian out of the family home and arrange for them to stay temporarily with a friend added to the confusion. It felt like everything was crumbling around us. As I struggled with losing my place in both the firm and our home, something unexpected happened. In the middle of all this chaos, there was a small ray of hope that would soon change our future. The days after being pushed out of the firm and our home were filled with confusion and heartbreak, but something better was waiting just around the corner. I spent the first few days in a small cabin by the lake, trying to make sense of everything that had happened and what my future might look like. The peaceful surroundings did little to calm the storm inside me. I felt lost, like I had no clear direction. Sean and Kevin were supportive, telling me to use this time to reflect. Their kindness helped, but it didn't take away the deep sense of betrayal I felt. Sean had always been my source of strength, but I could see the stress this situation was putting on him. He was struggling with his responsibility to the firm and his family. Not long after, my phone rang, and I saw Brian's name on the screen. My heart sank. I had hoped I wouldn't have to deal with him after everything that had happened, but his voice was full of worry, and I knew I had to listen. "Janet, I don't know what to do," Brian said, his voice shaky. "Everything is falling apart. I thought I could handle it, but I'm lost. I don't even know how to do the accounting, and I'm struggling with the staff." Hearing him admit this hit me hard. This was Brenda's youngest son, who had been given my job without any thought, now drowning in the role. Brenda had made it sound so easy, but Brian's struggles showed how much she had underestimated the difficulties I had been managing for years. Despite the pain I felt, I couldn't help but feel sorry for Brian. He had been thrown into a situation far beyond his abilities. I gave him some advice over the phone, but I knew it was only a temporary fix. Brian needed more help than I could give from a distance. After the call, I tried to focus back on my own life. I spent my days walking by the lake, reading and trying to clear my mind. Sean and Kevin visited me from time to time, but the news they brought about the firm was never good. Brian's mistakes were piling up. Clients were leaving, and financial issues were growing. It was clear the firm was in serious trouble. One day, Sean came with a serious look on his face. He told me that he and Kevin had decided to face the situation head-on. "Brian's mistakes have put us in a tough spot," Sean said. "Kevin and I have talked it over, and he thinks the firm might need to merge with a larger company. It's the only way to save it." The news was both surprising and expected. I knew the firm was struggling, but the thought of merging felt like giving up. I could see how much this was weighing on Sean. This decision wasn't made easily. Kevin truly believed merging was the only option, but Brenda was completely against it. She wanted Sean to take full control, thinking that merging meant giving up. As if things weren't already complicated, Kevin dropped another bombshell. He announced he was planning to divorce Brenda. The reasons were painful and personal. Kevin accused Brenda of neglecting her duties at home and of undermining the work I had done at the firm. He even revealed that she had been involved in affairs. The news shocked everyone, including me. The family was falling apart, and Kevin's decision to ask both Brenda and Brian to leave caused even more anger and confusion. Their departure left the house tense and full of unresolved issues. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. On one hand, Brenda's exit meant I wouldn't have to face her anymore, but on the other hand, her absence left a gap that was hard to ignore. With Brenda and Brian gone, it was now up to Sean, Kevin, and me to deal with the aftermath. Preparing for the merger was a massive task. The employees were nervous, unsure of what the future held. Kevin and Sean worked nonstop to make the transition as smooth as possible. It was exhausting, but there was a small sense of hope in the hard work we were doing to stabilize the firm. During this time, I tried to find some balance. I focused on myself, using the quiet moments to reflect and think about what I wanted for my future. I was starting to settle into this new routine when something unexpected happened. I found out I was pregnant. The news of my pregnancy was a turning point. It came as a surprise and brought a whirlwind of emotions, happiness, fear, and a new sense of purpose. In the middle of all the chaos, this tiny spark of hope gave me a renewed drive. It felt like life was giving me a chance to start fresh, to create something beautiful out of all the wreckage. As I prepared for the changes ahead, I knew there would be challenges. The firm was facing a major shift, and my personal life was about to change in a big way. But for the first time in a long while, I felt clear-headed. The future was uncertain, but it also held the promise of new beginnings. The days after the announcement of the merger, along with the family struggles, were filled with difficult negotiations and emotional battles. But I was ready to face whatever came next. I had returned to Portland, trying to adjust to the new reality. The house felt different without Brenda and Brian. It was quieter, but the silence was heavy with unresolved issues and past hurts. Sean and Kevin were working nonstop on the merger. The firm, which had been my professional home for 10 years, was about to become part of a larger company. This wasn't just a business deal, it was an emotional roller coaster. The employees were anxious about their futures, and the responsibility weighed heavily on everyone. Sean, always calm, was involved in every part of the merger. "Janet, it's going to be okay," he would tell me, though I could see the stress in his eyes. "We're doing everything we can to make sure the firm comes out stronger." Kevin was just as focused. He had thrown himself into the merger negotiations with determination, guiding the firm through this tough time just as he had during my years working there. Still, there was a distance between us now, created by the recent family problems and personal revelations. One day, while I was going through old papers in the office, I found a stack of photos from the early days of the firm. They reminded me of how much we had built together. The firm wasn't just a business, it was a symbol of years of hard work and commitment. As I looked through the pictures, I couldn't help but feel a sense of longing for the times when things were simpler. While the merger was happening, Sean and I were also dealing with the changes in our family. The news of my pregnancy had spread, and people had mixed reactions. Some were happy for us, offering congratulations, while others seemed unsure about what the future held for us. I remember one evening when Sean and I sat in the living room, talking about everything that was going on. "Janet, I know this is a lot to deal with," Sean said, his voice full of concern. "But we're in this together. The firm will be okay, and we'll figure out how to handle everything." His words were reassuring, but the future still felt uncertain. The merger was a big step, and it was hard to know how it would affect both our personal lives and the firm's future. The reality of becoming parents added another layer of complexity to everything. I wanted to feel excited about the baby growing inside me, but I couldn't stop worrying about how it would fit into our already complicated lives. As the day of the merger came closer, the atmosphere at the firm was filled with nervous anticipation. The employees were getting ready for the changes, and Sean and Kevin were finalizing everything. I tried to stay positive and supportive, even though it was clear that the merger was a big change for everyone involved. Just when it seemed like things were starting to settle into a new routine, a new problem came up. Brenda and Brian, who had been staying with a friend, reached out to me. Brenda wanted to meet, and even though I had my doubts, I agreed. The meeting was uncomfortable, with a lot of unspoken tension. "I didn't come here to fight," Brenda said, her voice tired. "I just wanted to see how you're doing. I know things ended badly, and I regret how it all happened." Her words were a mix of apology and defensiveness. She had always been hard to read, and this meeting was no different. I could tell she was struggling with everything that had happened, especially the divorce. Brian, sitting quietly next to her, looked tired and unsure. "I appreciate you reaching out," I said, trying to stay calm. "But it's been hard for all of us. I hope you understand why things turned out the way they did." Brenda nodded, though she still looked guarded. "I just want things to be better for everyone." The meeting didn't fix everything, but it gave a small sense of understanding. Brenda was dealing with her own issues, and Brian was still trying to find his place after being put in a role that was too much for him. Once the merger was done, and the firm was moving forward, Sean and I started to focus more on our personal lives. Getting ready for the baby became something exciting and hopeful. We began to picture a future that wasn't just about the business, but also about the new life we were about to welcome. As the firm settled into its new structure, there was a sense of renewal. The transition had been tough, but it also brought some positive changes. The employees were adjusting, and Sean and Kevin were working hard to strengthen the firm's position in the market. In the last few weeks before the baby arrived, we were filled with a mix of excitement and preparation. Sean and I worked on making our home ready for our growing family. It was a new chapter for us, one that would bring both challenges and joys. Despite all the turmoil and uncertainties, there was a feeling of hope in the air. The firm was starting to recover, and our personal lives were moving in a new and positive direction. The past had been tough, but it had also opened the door for new beginnings. As the final days of my pregnancy drew near, I found myself thinking about the whirlwind of events that had brought us to this point. Life had thrown its challenges our way, and this past year had been no different. Yet, despite all the ups and downs, I felt a sense of peace and excitement as I prepared for our baby's arrival. It was the start of a new chapter, a fresh beginning in the midst of the chaos. Sean and I had found a new routine, balancing the demands of the firm while getting ready for our baby. The merger had gone through successfully, and the firm was starting to find its stability under the new structure. Things were calming down, though the road to get here had been far from smooth. One evening, as Sean and I sat together in the living room, we talked about what was ahead. "Janet, I know it hasn't been easy," Sean said, gently placing his hand on my stomach. "But I'm proud of how we've handled everything, and I'm excited for what's next." His words were reassuring. The past months had been filled with both stress and hope, and it was comforting to know we were moving forward together. Despite all the challenges, the thought of becoming parents brought us joy and excitement. We were looking forward to this new beginning, a welcome change from the turmoil of the past year. When our baby finally arrived, it was a moment of pure joy. Holding our child for the first time filled me with so much love and hope. It made all the struggles we had faced feel worth it. This baby was a reminder of what truly mattered, a symbol of new beginnings. As we adjusted to life with our newborn, we also saw a renewed sense of purpose. At the same time, the firm was settling into its new role. The merger had brought big changes, but it also opened doors for growth. Sean and Kevin worked closely with the new partners to ensure everything ran smoothly, and it became clear that the firm was on the road to recovery. The employees, who had been worried about the changes, now seemed more hopeful. The new structure gave them opportunities to grow, and it was satisfying to see the firm finding its way again. There was a growing sense of stability and a fresh energy in the workplace. However, amidst these positive changes, there were still unresolved issues with Brenda and Brian. They had been staying with a friend since they left our home, and their situation was far from the stability they once had. I had mixed feelings about their situation. On one hand, I felt some sympathy for what they were going through. On the other hand, the hurt from their actions was still fresh. One day, Brenda reached out to me again, but this time the conversation was different. "Janet," she said, her voice softer than before. "I wanted to thank you for giving us the chance to make things right. I know I made mistakes, and I regret how things turned out. I hope we can find a way to move forward." Her words were a step toward healing, though I knew it wouldn't be easy. Still, I appreciated the gesture and saw her sincerity. "Brenda, I think we all have things to work on," I replied, "but I hope we can find a way to move forward and rebuild what's been broken." Brian also expressed his desire to make amends. He had struggled with his role in the firm and the fallout from our family's issues, but he was trying to find his way again. "I'm sorry for everything," he told me during one of our talks. "I know I didn't handle things well, and I want to make things right." It was a small step, but it was a start. Forgiving and rebuilding trust takes time, and I knew it wouldn't happen overnight. But there was a glimmer of hope that, with time, we could mend the fractures and move forward. As the days passed, the focus shifted more toward our family and the future. The firm was on a good path, and Sean and I were finding our balance as new parents. The challenges of the past year had taught us a lot about strength, love, and the importance of family. This new chapter in our lives was full of hope and possibility. We were learning how to balance both personal and professional responsibilities, but there was a new sense of purpose in everything we did. The trials we had faced had brought us closer and helped us see what truly mattered. Looking ahead, I felt hopeful about the future. The journey had been hard, but it had also brought us together and taught us valuable lessons. We were ready to embrace whatever new opportunities and challenges came our way, confident that we could handle them as a family. In the end, our family story was one of growth and change. We had faced tough times, made difficult choices, and dealt with complex emotions, but through it all, we had found hope and a new sense of purpose. As we looked toward the future, we knew it would be shaped by the lessons we had learned and the strength we had gained.